A collaboration of water districts in Southern California recently began a pilot program to study how cloud seeding can bring much-needed rain to drought-plagued parts of San Bernardino, Riverside, and Orange counties.
In China, they're waging war on the weather. A drought so severe, they're firing rockets into the sky to make it rain. The practice is known as cloud seeding. Drones and rockets are used to sow silver iodide into the clouds. The substance has a similar structure to ice and changes the cloud's structure to increase the chance of rain.
With a small pop and a puff of smoke, cloud seeding is done in the hills above Pasadena. The generators are actually controlled by a crew in Utah. Think of a mission control type of setting. They're able to watch exactly what's happening with the camera that's mounted here.
Before any of these canisters are triggered, we're carefully looking at the weather patterns, the wind patterns.
The cloud seeding project could result in additions to the rainfall that we receive in the region. The Water Conservation District, we're a small organization, but we have over 70 recharge basins that are capable of recharging over 80,000 acre feet of water every year. We recharged over 80,000 acre feet in 2023, but the last time that we recharged that much was in 1923. So the infrastructure is there. The infrastructure is just waiting for water to be available. So with cloud seeding, if it works the way we think it could, we could see this infrastructure that's already built be put to use more days out of the year than it currently is, and we could see more recharge into the basin that way.
Betsy Miller is the general manager of the San Bernardino Valley Water Conservation District, located in Southern California. Miller is talking about the new cloud seeding pilot project she and her district are participating in. The project is part of the Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority, or SAPA as it's known. Miller and her district are one of the 5 agencies that comprise the Santa Ana watershed. The 100-mile Santa Ana River runs from the San Bernardino Mountains west through the mountain valley, draining an area of some 2,700 square miles through San Bernardino, Riverside, and Orange counties, eventually on out to the Pacific Ocean. A watershed can be considered a drainage basin of sorts. It collects all the water that falls as snowmelt or rain, and then the water is either captured within the watershed or distributed to the ocean. For some history, the San Bernardino Valley Water Conservation District was originally founded in the late 1800s, back then as a voluntary association of the local farming community. That's because throughout the 1800s, massive drought overtook the region, much like today in California, resulting in limited groundwater. Local farmers, with the help of the association, realized the overwhelming need to monitor the water levels in the local aquifer and basically begin recharging the water so there was enough of a supply for the future. Well, fast forward several decades, this water district formally became a government agency in the early 1930s, and ever since then, that plan of water stewardship continues today with the Conservation District to make sure there's sufficient SoCal water for its users.
The region's changed quite a bit. We used to be primarily agriculture. Today, we still proudly serve our agricultural community, but a lot of the water that's now pumped out of the basin serves industry, along with homes. So up to 70% of the water that comes out of a faucet in the upper watershed at any given time was at one point in the aquifer. So we're trying something new. And with all the change in the world, with our increasing population, we need to keep trying new things. But the way this project was set up is not just to try something new, but also to study what we're doing. So the theory is that with this program, we'll get potentially more rainfall in the upper watershed. We could see improvements in our forest health. We could see increased resilience to drought, increased resilience to insect infestations for our forests. But we don't know for sure, and so we're going to study it. That we could get a little more water in the upper watershed, and that water through our facilities could be recharged into the aquifer. Basin levels are still at record lows. We have some wells that are down 200 feet, 300 feet. And that's not the direction we want. That's not what we want to see for our region. So the opportunity to recharge more water really is that hedge for our region, our ability to be resilient in the face of a changing climate, in the face of population growth, so that we can continue to maintain our quality of life, our standard of living, our economy here in the region.
Opponents of this science say the silver iodide from cloud seeding used to increase precipitation is a toxic pollutant. Some claim the cumulative impacts of inadvertent weather modification could result in dangerous climate alterations, changes that can negatively affect air quality, ecosystems, water resources. While many critics of cloud seeding argue this science process causes harm to the environment, Miller believes this process, based upon the SAPA study so far, is safe and effective.
Based on the information that I've heard to date, it appears to be a very positive program that doesn't present a lot of negatives. But again, the importance of how the program's being developed and the pilot that's currently underway is that we're studying that. So before in theory, it seems like a great idea, but before we roll that out, we'll have the information to be sure before a larger program is undertaken. Really, everyone benefits if there's a little bit more water available in the upper watershed. So any industry that uses water, any farmer that irrigates with well water, every single person who takes a drink, who drinks a glass of water in the upper watershed benefits. There's indications from the data that we have to date that additional rainfall could support populations of things like California gnatcatcher and cactus wren as well.
Bruce Whitaker is also working with the Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority. Whitaker is the director of the Orange County Water District, one of the 5 Southern California agencies who are part of this collaboration, and they all work to control and improve conditions of the Santa Ana River throughout the watershed.
Well, coming off 4 years of drought, we were looking to increase options for our water portfolio, and about 5 years that aren't so wet. So we're constantly trying to find alternative ways of augmenting and not being so reliant on imported water. Cloud seeding has been done successfully for many years, Santa Barbara and in 11 states. And so we looked into the possibility, and if it produces the way we think it would, it's a very cost-effective way to be more self-reliant on our water needs and less reliant on imported sources.
Like Betsy Miller, Bruce Whitaker believes cloud seeding and the pilot project they're participating in is good science, a process that could potentially help millions of Southern California residents with their water usage. Certainly there are the detractors of this science who disagree. In some cases even blame cloud seeding for unnatural and hazardous weather events. For example, in Dubai during April of 2024, when over a year's worth of rain fell in just 24 hours, submerging the normally arid Mideast Gulf region and igniting a theory that cloud seeding was to blame. In that 24 hours, massive rains flooded parts of the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Oman. And some people throughout the world began blogging, insisting this area never gets that kind of rainfall or storm clusters, thus sparking their cloud seeding theories. Whitaker says his water district has been studying these types of weather events all over the world, including Dubai. And while he says it's easy to blame cloud seeding for that event, the reality is there are so many different weather variables that could have caused this type of catastrophic flooding. And he says it's just too difficult to know for certain what the exact cause was. Even here in Southern California this past year, there were much heavier than normal rains that caused a lot of flooding in parts of LA, Orange, San Bernardino, and Riverside counties, leading some skeptics here to also theorize the SoCal storms could possibly have been due to cloud seeding even from this pilot project. However, Whitaker also says in SoCal's case, cloud seeding is probably not to blame due to all the variance in Southern California weather.
Our pilot program, we've put in many safeguards to allow us to make decisions whether to pull the trigger or not on utilizing the cloud seeding. And I think that with improved weather forecasting, which we're doing very much with FIRO, is going to be helpful. It helps us identify atmospheric rivers and their potentiality and their direction, and allow us to decide where to sharpshoot. We're not doing just an overall spraying of of material to create precipitation, but we're sharpshooting. And through this test period, our pilot program for the next few years, we're going to be very conscious of what we're doing and maybe what the perceived effect is. And we're going to analyze at the back end and understand whether it's successful, whether it's doing what we thought it would, whether we're not creating harm. You know, safety is our #1 consideration. So people need to be aware that we all are residents in this region, and we certainly don't want to create any harm or cause any flooding. We think the possibility of that is quite low. What we're doing is ground-based cloud seeding. And so we don't really have planes. We're not putting pilots in jeopardy during terrific storms or anything like that. So we are blessed with our geography here, which allows us on the slopes and the mountains, really, which are our backdrop for the watershed, to set these automated high output generating stations. They're like a Christmas tree, like a flare, pretty much. They ignite automatically, remotely, when they're directed to. And that sifts up the heat. The warmth actually brings it up the slopes and up into the clouds. And so it's a very cost-effective way of dealing with it. Some cultures they fire rockets into low-level clouds, and many use air seeding, and there are different types of cloud seeding as well, including salts. In Dubai, they use salts, more or less. We have silver iodide, which is very microscopically small dust, more or less, which is quite inert and has not been proven to be toxic or really be a health hazard at all. And by allowing natural processes, the natural airflows, to carry that up into the clouds, it's a fairly organic way that we're approaching things.
And if there is no harm, and Whitaker believes there's not, this water expert says cloud seeding is going to help a large part of the Southern California population, especially during drought season or during an emergency drought declaration, of which there have been many over the years in the Golden State.
We're hoping that when we analyze results here, we'll find very little in the way of a harmful side effect, if any at all. We have 6 million people who live within our watershed. That would be larger than 31 states' populations. So we're very interested in achieving the most benefit for all those people, all the residents, businesses, everyone who lives here. We're more urbanized than most areas where cloud seeding has been happening over time. And so we are going to be a little bit of a test case to try to understand how these units coexist in fairly close proximity sometimes with residential areas.
Rachel Gray is the Water Resources and Planning Manager at the Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority. She explains more about SAPA's plan.
So SAPA's 4-year pilot program is designed to target the higher elevation mountains that drain into the watershed. And so the intent or the goal of the program is to generate additional precipitation in the form of snow and rain that then can be captured as stormwater. Also, we have a total of 15 ground-based cloud seeding units that are located across the watershed, and they release silver iodide particulates into the cloud to help generate additional precipitation. So our project meteorologist, he looks at the storm conditions and assesses the seedability of each storm. And so the conditions that he looks at includes the cloud type and the cloud structure, and then the cloud temperatures is very important. So specifically, we'd like to see the cloud temperature below -5 degrees Celsius or 23 degrees Fahrenheit. And then wind direction is really important. So all these conditions are considered before a storm is considered to be seedable. And the first year of cloud seeding was successful. We performed cloud seeding during 12 storms this past year. I would like to highlight that we did not cloud seed all the storms because some of the storms did not meet the conditions for seeding. And then in for other events, we actually enacted our suspension criteria where there were large successive storms, so we did not seed those storms. Our program targets the 4 mountain ranges that surround the watershed. And so the mountains facilitate the rise of silver iodide particulates into the clouds. An operations plan was developed, and we got input from the flood control districts that identify specific criteria that avoid floods, that avoids debris flows. We take into consideration their burn scars. Also, we have criteria that looks at severe storms and large successive storms. So all those elements are considered before we decide to seed or not seed.
Ronald Stein is the author of the Pulitzer Prize-nominated book, Clean Energy Exploitations. He is an international energy consultant and has done extensive research about cloud seeding. We spoke with Stein recently to discuss his concerns with this science process. What is your opinion about this new pilot project?
Cloud seeding is another man-made effort to manipulate the climate. You take a look at the wealthy countries. It's only the wealthy countries that are doing these crazy things, trying to seed the clouds and trying to generate electricity from wind and solar that takes advantage of developing countries. And I tend to look at the globe, and the globe has been around for about 4 billion years. And, we have 8 billion people living on this planet. And ironically, 200 years ago, it was only 1 billion. But because of all the products we've been able to get out of those oil derivatives, we've grown from 1 to 8 billion in less than 200 years. And we have wealthy countries that are manipulating things, and the poor developing countries they're in, like I say, they're in bad shape. There's a staggering almost 345 million people experiencing acute hunger, and the number has more than doubled since the pandemic, 2019. Considering this calamity in view of the concern over CO2 levels, how can fellow human beings continue? And cloud seeding is just another taxpayer-funded toy to manipulate the climate.
Yet, Ron, to be fair to the project, isn't cloud seeding a good thing in this sense that it can bring this much-needed water to these drought-plagued regions?
Well, much needed in whose opinion? The Earth has been around 4 billion years, and it's going to exist when man's not here. And no one's going to be around to seed the clouds. We didn't have planes before, and we've run out of crude oil. We won't have planes available to seed the clouds. So it's just a temporary fix to meet our current needs. If you really want water, get a pipeline from Mississippi, bring in that water, to the west, or, bring in tankers, but, build reservoirs to hold the water you want to have in reserve. If you want reserves, build a reserve.
Are you concerned about the silver iodide compound that is used in this process of cloud seeding?
I am not. The Earth is so big. When you take a look at the Earth, 70% of the Earth is water, and the other 30% is land, and most of that land is not even habitable because it's mountains and deserts. And man's presence on Earth is so minuscule that the cloud seeding is not going to affect the climate.
So what are more of your concerns about this? I was reading some of your writings that you had researched about cloud seeding, and you were talking about the financials. The financials are the concern. I wasn't sure what you were talking about exactly.
I don't think it's really right to have taxpayers pay for this, because the programs that different cities have is whatever the budget is, it's funded with taxpayer money. And I don't think that's the proper way to do it, to have taxpayers pay for the seeding.
You also said in one of your books, if I'm not mistaken, is that this is sort of a globalist view of the world and a globalist attempt to kind of control the weather, if I'm not mistaken, Ron.
It is. And like I say, it's only being done in the wealthy countries. And the wealthy countries, when you take a look at the 8 billion living on this earth, only about 5% live in the wealthy countries. China, India, Africa, they don't, of the 8 billion people on this earth, 80%, that's a big number. That's more than 6 billion people they're living on less than $10 a day. They can't subsidize themselves out of a paper bag. But we in the wealthy countries, we can do anything. And we're doing it. And I think it's, for the amount of money we're spending trying to control the climate, we can probably do more for humanity by trying to bring them out of poverty. And I think if you want to do some cloud seeding, you might want to do some cloud seeding in the developing countries. They've got lots of land, a lot of agricultural potential, but we're basically doing it in our backyard, not their backyard.
Despite the claims of Ronald Stein, Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority General Manager Jeff Mosier says cloud seeding could be a great opportunity to increase water reliability when drought-plagued California water is so scarce.
So we do a tremendous amount of water recycling, groundwater recharge, we do stormwater capture, we have groundwater desalters. And so cloud seeding is just another option that we can add to the local water supply. So our commission was interested in studying cloud seeding to see if it works for our region. We've been working on water reliability for a number of years. So we recycle 100% of our wastewater in the watershed, which is not common. That's a tremendous achievement for us. And so we've tapped out wastewater. We capture a lot of stormwater, but we need for it to rain, right, in order to be able to capture that stormwater. We have existing stormwater capture infrastructure. Cloud seeding, if it works for our region, and that's why we're doing this study, the pilot study, is to see if we can get some additional rain in the storms that come through. So what does cloud seeding give us? It would increase the amount of stream flow from those storms by 5 to 15%. So even squeezing out just that amount of water would be a benefit for the region. Again, we would capture it through stormwater infrastructure for recharge into our groundwater basins. If it's about 8% increase, that would translate to about water for about 16,000 households for the watershed. And so that would be a benefit from a water supply point of view. Cloud seeding also has other benefits in terms of adding to soil moisture in forests, in our national forest around the watershed. It also would go into our rivers, so it enhance habitat. So there's other benefits besides water supply.
Despite all the positives of cloud seeding, Mosher admits there can be some concerns about the environmental impacts of this process, a process that he says his agency is studying thoroughly with the new pilot project to be sure the environment is not going to be harmed.
Public agency, SAPA conducted a California Environmental Quality Act study that's required for these types of projects. The purpose of the CEQA study is to look at the environmental impacts from the project before you do it, to understand if there needs to be any mitigation or other changes to the project to make sure it's safe for human health and the environment. Our CEQA document looked at the impacts of silver iodide, which is used as part of cloud seeding, in terms of human health and the environment. And the finding was from the CEQA document that based on the low levels used of silver iodide in our program, it would not be toxic in the environment or human health. Silver iodide has been studied in terms of its human health effects. It's considered an inert chemical. Silver iodide has a strong bond. It does not dissociate into silver and iodide readily. It only does that under extreme conditions. And once you have had a project, even for a number of years or decades, the silver iodide is not found in the environment above natural background levels. So silver iodide occurs in nature. The amount that we use in terms of cloud seeding isn't expected to increase that amount of background silver iodide in the environment.